Hi, everybody. This is September 15th, 2024. It's today's update on my video journal of my recovery from the trauma of watching my little brother, Paul Kierans, be locked up by the British Columbia New Democratic Party government for 588 days. And then watching him die. I believe that he was killed by my sister, who they had appointed his guardian. So just brief summaries. Paul was 2 years younger than me, and we visited at will for his whole life, 64 years. I cared for him at my home 1 or 2 weekends a month for 10 years after my mother died between 2004 and 2014. I discovered in January of 2022 that Paul's group home, L'Arche, L''ARCHE, which we now know was started as an SEX cult by two SEX predators, Jean Vanier, a retired Canadian naval officer, and his sidekick, Thomas Philippe, excommunicated, defrocked Catholic priest from France. They started L'Arche, L''ARCHE, as a cover for their cult. They preyed upon young women that worked in these residential group homes for incapable adults. We didn't find that out until 2019 when Jean Vanier died, and this had been going on for 50 years. But in any event, I discovered in January of 2022 that L'Arche had created a secret power of attorney over Paul, naming my 81-year-old Catholic nun sister 4,000 kilometers away in Ontario as his substitute decision maker. And initially they terminated all of Paul's contact with any non-L'Arche employee when I complained about this. And they reinstated our visitation agreement when I sued them. I complained to the Burnaby RCMP in August of 2022 about this fraudulent and forged power of attorney. And as soon as I did that, I believe the RCMP tipped off L'Arche's director and L'Arche's lawyer, Tara Britnell, Britnell, wrote me a letter on September 12th of 2022, terminating all my contact with Paul, all my in-person contact. This evil person, Tara Britnell, allowed a 10-minute telephone call once a week on Friday. No doubt it was because I had reported them to the police. And at that time, the police took no steps. The constable that I spoke with said that she would get the original document because I said it was a fraud and a forgery. She said she would get the original document and interview the two witnesses. L'Arche had two of its low-level caregivers witness Paul's signature. They never provided him with independent legal advice or even took him to a notary, which would have cost about $40. And apparently they did this with hundreds of their clients. L'Arche, I've asked John Rousted, the Conservative Party of BC's leader, to shut down L'Arche as the first order of business when he becomes Premier on October 19th of this year. So for 588 days, L'Arche and the British Columbia government, run by David Eby, He's the acting premier. He appointed himself premier when John Horgan, who was elected premier, got cancer. So I wrote them every day, and I took a letter to them every single business day, asking just to meet with them to explain my concerns about Paul's confinement and isolation. I'm his last living family member in the Lower Mainland from a big family. Everyone has died or moved away except for me. He's my only living family member too. And David Eby's lawyer, Tina Mason, wrote me this snotty email. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. She said, well, we're not going to respond to you. And they didn't. I went there every single day. I went to the government office every single day that they were open, and I dropped off a letter asking for a meeting, and they never did meet with me. In that 588 days, they allowed one 1-hour visit for Christmas of 2023. They allowed one 1-hour visit at their office. Truly an evil government, right up there with the Nazis and Hitler. They locked up Paul with no due process. He never had his own lawyer. He had no lawyer or legal advice at all. And when I fought this to the Supreme Court of Canada twice. And then Paul had a stroke on April 13th of 2024, this year. And L'Arche didn't tell me for two days. They wanted to see if he would die. And then when it was clear he wasn't going to die, then they had my sister's evil lawyer email me at night saying, oh, Paul had a stroke. You can arrange a visit through me. This is evil. It doesn't get more evil than this. Paul's not a criminal. He's a completely innocent adult, as I am too. I've raised 2 children as a single mother. I was a lawyer. I've worked my whole life, paid taxes my whole life. I've done everything to be an upstanding citizen, and all I wanted to do was visit with my little brother twice a week. And David Eby refused to even respond to my requests for a meeting. He used to be the president of the British Columbia Civil Liberties Society, and as I've repeatedly said, you will never find a human being less interested in civil liberties. An evil guy, just evil. Evil Eby, I call him. So on April 21st, I got a call from the Burnaby RCMP saying they had been ordered by the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the RCMP in Ottawa to reopen the investigation into the fraudulent and forged power of attorney. And I was sitting in the lobby of the Burnaby General Hospital when I got this phone call, and I thought, oh my God, finally somebody's listening to me. My brother's going to be saved. I went in and saw a judge the next day, but we didn't get on. And within 24 hours of my sister learning that the government had reopened the investigation into her fraudulent and forged power of attorney, my brother was dead. And he wasn't dying. He had a stroke or something happened to him on April 13th. He had a big gash on the side of his head that I noticed with oozing blood. So somebody might have hit him or he might have fallen, but he was recovering. When I visited him, I was allowed a 10-minute visit once a day, although I sat in the lobby and waited at the hospital 10 to 12 hours a day. I brought my little laptop and just worked on my laptop. But he was recovering. I could see that he was recovering. He grabbed a book from my hand, turned the pages perfectly. He was so excited to see me. He looked me straight in the eye. And I couldn't believe it. I posted a notice here on Facebook. I couldn't believe it, that Paul was recovering. But then within 24 hours of my evil sister, the nun, learning that the RCMP had reopened their investigation into the fraudulent and forged power of attorney, within 24 hours, Paul was dead. So, I watched them kill him before my eyes. When I visited him up until April 22nd. He had a ventilator, a catheter. He was on intravenous. But once my sister learned that the RCMP had reopened the investigation into the fraudulent and forged document, he was dead. The ventilator was removed. I walked into the room when I got to the hospital after court, and the evil nun said to me, without looking me in the eye, she had that look, her chin was set. I knew she had, my brother had to die. The RCMP couldn't interview him. They couldn't get a sample of his signature. He had to die. She thought if he died, that would be the end of the investigation. And she ordered the medical staff to kill him. So they removed his ventilator, his catheter, his intravenous, and they applied sedation, some kind of pain-killing sedation to kill him. And he was fragile. He was recovering. He wanted to live. He wanted to live. He was so excited to see me. And I thought, now that the police are involved again, we've got a chance. So he had to die. And that feeling of helplessness as I watched the hospital staff kill him, I can't tell you, it was the worst form of torture that you could ever inflict on anyone. Watching my little brother be killed before my very eyes by the Burnaby hospital staff. As my sister, she wouldn't look me in the eye. She said, "Say goodbye to Paul, he's dying." And he looked dead to me. I mean, when I first saw him, he grabbed my hand, squeezed it tight. I said, "Paul, it's Kathleen." But when I saw him after she learned that the police had reopened the investigation, his hand was completely limp and he was 100% unresponsive. His eyes were open and unfocused. He didn't feel cold, but he looked dead to me. And I mean, I've seen people die. I saw my mother die. My brother died. I mean, I know what it's like to deal with people dying. But no one should ever watch their loved one be murdered before their very eyes as they struggle to survive. And that's what happened to me. So what I'm asking you to do is to make sure that you're registered to vote. If you're a resident of British Columbia and you're eligible to vote, make sure that you should have received your confirmation of your voting status by now, and find out who your British Columbia Conservative Party of BC candidate is. Mine is Hamed Najafi. Hi, Mr. Najafi. And volunteer, get a sign, get 10 friends to go with you that are eligible to vote. Make sure that you give them a ride to the polling station. Offer to be a scrutineer for the Conservative Party of BC. Do whatever it takes to throw these socialist, communist, evil British Columbia New Democratic Party jerks out on their ass. In particular, evil David Eby. We have a chance to actually get some justice for Paul. I mean, I can't rest. I'm retired. I haven't been able to relax a minute during my retirement because I've been fighting to restore my brother's rights and to ensure that he gets some justice and that this never happens to anyone again. So get out there and volunteer for the Conservative Party of BC. Get out the vote. Contact your friends. Make sure you're registered. Become a scrutineer. Be a volunteer. Right now, the most important thing for the survival of this beautiful province is we've got to throw these assholes out on their ass. So that's all I can think of for now. Take care, everybody.